The first world Leo ever knew was the small corrugated metal shack his family called home, perched precariously on the outskirts of a city that had long forgotten them. The walls were so thin he could trace the path of the rain by its sound, a relentless drumming that turned the dirt floor to mud. At night, he'd lie awake, counting the stars through the gaps in the roof, not as a pastime, but as a way to distract himself from the gnawing emptiness in his stomach. His father was a ghost of a man, worn down by back-breaking labor that paid in scraps, and his mother, with hands raw from washing other people's clothes, fought a daily, silent war against despair. For Leo, poverty wasn't an abstract concept. It was the chill in his bones, the constant hum of hunger, the shame of wearing shoes that were more whole than soul, held together by little more than hope and string. His escape, his one and only rebellion against the grim destiny that seemed to be written for him, was running. Not with fancy running shoes on a manicured track, but barefoot, on the rough gravel-strewn paths that snaked behind the shantytown. He'd run until his lungs burned and his feet were raw, the physical pain a welcome substitute for the ache of his circumstances. He ran from the taunts of other children, from the pity in the eyes of shopkeepers, from the heavy silence that filled his home. He was running towards something, though he didn't know what. He just knew that when his legs were pumping and the wind was whipping past his ears, he felt free. He felt powerful. He felt, for a few fleeting moments, like the hero of his own story, not just an extra in someone else's tragedy. One day, a school coach, a man named Elias, who had seen a flicker of something special in the scrawny, determined boy, managed to scrape together a pair of second-hand running spikes. They were worn, the pins almost smooth, but to Leo, they were Cinderella's slippers. Elias entered him in a local district race. Leo, fueled by a lifetime of pent-up energy and a desperate need to prove he was more than his address, didn't just win. He annihilated the competition, crossing the finish line with a look of such stunned disbelief that it broke Elias's heart. This was the turning point, the first crack of light under a very heavy door. Elias became his mentor, his benefactor, his surrogate father. He saw in Leo not just a fast runner, but an unbreakable will. He started training him properly, but their track was still the dirt road. Their hurdles were potholes and stray dogs, and their weight room was the act of hauling water from the communal pump. The path to mastery, however, is never a straight line. Just as Leo began to dream, to truly believe that running could be his ticket out, his body betrayed him. A searing pain in his shins was diagnosed as severe stress fractures, a consequence of years of running on unforgiving surfaces with inadequate footwear. The doctor was blunt. Rest for 6 months, maybe more. If you run on these now, you might never run again. For Leo, this was a death sentence. Running wasn't just a sport, it was his identity, his therapy, his only hope. The next few months were a dark descent. The poverty he had momentarily outrun in his mind came crashing back, louder and more suffocating than ever. He watched from the sidelines as other boys trained, their futures bright and untarnished, while his own seemed to be rusting away. But a will forged in the fires of adversity is not so easily extinguished. Lying in his shack, Leo made a decision. If he couldn't run, he would become stronger in every other way. He began a brutal regimen of core workouts and upper body strength exercises in the confined space of his home, using bricks and a salvaged length of rope. He visualized his races over and over again, feeling the track under his feet, the rhythm of his breath, the final burst of speed. He studied videos of great runners, not just their technique but their mindset. He was building a fortress inside his mind, one that no physical pain could breach. When he was finally cleared to run, it was with a caution that felt like a dare. He started slow, his body protesting, but his spirit was a roaring fire. He had not wasted his time in the darkness. He had used it to sharpen his most potent weapon, his determination. Years of relentless, obsessive work followed. Leo's life became a monastic ritual of run, eat, work, a part-time job to help his family, sleep, and run again. He faced social rejection from more privileged athletes who saw him as an outsider, a charity case. He suffered heartbreaking near misses, losing races by hundredths of a second, failures that would have crushed a lesser spirit. But each failure was a lesson, each rejection a piece of coal added to the furnace of his ambition. He took immense risks, pushing his body to limits that scared even Coach Elias. He would run until he vomited, train until his muscles screamed for mercy, all while balancing the immense pressure of being his family's great hope. The weight of their dreams was a heavier burden than any barbell he could have lifted. The dramatic turning point came not at the Olympics, but a year before, at a qualifying national championship. It was the race that would decide who made the Olympic team. Leo was up against the country's reigning champion, a man groomed for success from childhood, with corporate sponsors and a state-of-the-art training facility. The race was tight, a blistering display of speed and strategy. Coming into the final bend, Leo and the champion were neck and neck, and then it happened. The champion, in a desperate move, clipped Leo's heel. Leo stumbled, his rhythm shattered, his balance gone. For a heart-stopping second, he was falling, the dream slipping through his fingers like sand. The crowd gasped. But Leo, drawing on a lifetime of overcoming stumbles, both literal and metaphorical, managed to stay on his feet. He didn't just recover, he exploded. A primal roar tore from his throat, a sound born of every hungry night, every taunt, every moment of doubt. He dug into a reserve of strength he didn't know he possessed, and surged forward, not just winning the race but breaking the national record. He crossed the finish line and collapsed, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer, overwhelming release of a lifetime of struggle. In that moment, he wasn't just a runner, he was a force of nature. He had earned his place. The Olympic Games were a whirlwind of noise and color, a universe away from the quiet dirt paths of his youth. As he stood on the starting line for the final, the world watching, he felt a strange calm. The roar of the crowd faded into a distant hum. He wasn't thinking about gold medals or fame. He was thinking of his mother's hands, of Coach Elias's belief, of the feel of cold mud between his bare toes. The gun fired. The race was a blur of controlled fury and perfect technique. In the final stretch, as his body screamed for oxygen and his legs turned to lead, he remembered the doctor's warning, the feel of his broken shins, the darkness of despair, and he ran faster. He crossed the line first, and as he did, a silence fell over him, followed by a wave of sound so immense it felt physical. He had done it. The boy from the shack was an Olympic champion. But the true measure of Leo's story isn't found in the gold medal, heavy and cool around his neck. It's found in what he did next. He used his newfound platform and the money that came with it not for personal luxury, but for transformation. The first thing he built was not a mansion for himself, but a proper community center with a real, rubberized running track in his old neighborhood. He established a foundation to find other kids like him, kids with fire in their eyes, and nothing in their pockets, and give them the shoes, the coaching, the hope that he had so desperately needed. He understood that his victory was not his alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever been told they were not enough. His generosity became his legacy, a testament to the truth that the greatest success is not in rising to the top, but in reaching back to pull others up with you. His journey from a dirt floor shack to the top step of the Olympic podium is more than a sports story. It is a raw, unvarnished testament to the power of the human spirit. It's a reminder that our beginnings do not have to dictate our endings, that hunger, when channeled, can become fuel, that failure is not a wall, but a stepping stone, that the most formidable muscle any of us possess is the one between our ears, our will, our determination, our refusal to quit. Leo's life teaches us that talent is universal, but opportunity is not, and that sometimes the greatest strength is forged in the crucible of the greatest hardship. So, as you go about your day, facing your own challenges, your own moments of doubt and struggle, ask yourself this: what is the poverty you are running from, and what is the gold you are determined to win?